It's funny because within the very first hour of playing Crysis Remastered, I was already questioning my decision to even start the game at all. Everything felt off. The controls were clunky, the nanosuit powers didn't pack the punch that I was expecting, and even on normal difficulty, the game was actually really quite punishing. I died more times than I'd like to admit, of course, and while the PS5's fast loading times did make dying a little less painful, the checkpoints themselves were just often poorly placed, forcing me to replay long stretches of gameplay. For a remaster of such a legendary title, I expected a little bit more polish, especially in 2024. At least I had thought at first glance. But by the end of that first hour, I was genuinely tempted to quit. But here's the thing, I had mentally committed to the platinum trophy and the completion, and it wasn't a very long one either, so I kept going. I slowly adapted to the mechanics, I figured out the nuances of the nano suit, and I started improving my aim, especially since I haven't played a proper FPS game in a while, the last one being Atomic Heart, but that's not even a proper FPS game to begin with. And before I knew it, I was semi-enjoying myself, at least enough to finish the game, and ultimately by the end, conquer Crysis. But how much did my overall opinion of Crysis improve by the time I hit that 100% completion, or do I still wish I had skipped it entirely? So let's break it down, shall we? Crysis, 17 years later, first time playing through it. Let's talk about it.
We have to go!
Okay, the armor's clear.
Say that.
Ladies and or gentlemen, welcome back or welcome to the channel. My name is Zeno and this is my living legacy. I remember, if you like what I do here, just giving my very average opinion in some very casual content. Like the video so YouTube knows it doesn't totally suck. Subscribe if you're new, and let's dive into my experience with this legendary FPS title way after its initial release. Crysis is officially my 66th PSN completion and my 54th platinum trophy. Would I recommend it to someone in 2024? That's a tough call. If you're a nostalgic fan of the original or planning to play the entire remastered trilogy like I am, it might be worth a shot. That is mostly knowing that in advance, Crysis 2 and 3 are more modern shooters though, but for those modern gamers or people who don't care that much to look back on history, I'd absolutely hesitant to say that this is any type of a must-play title. Here's some context. I have actually played Crysis 2 back in 2011 on the Xbox 360, and I somehow ended up being in the top 1% of players who got the full 100% completion. The game had some absurd online achievements and grinding, including one for playing 6 months after its first session, which is just seriously, who thought this was a good idea? As for Crysis 3, I only boosted a few of the multiplayer achievements, and I never actually touched the single player campaign, even though I had boarded the game on day one. So this remaster was my first real exposure to the original Crysis and what started it all. So what is Crysis? For those unfamiliar, it is a first-person shooter set on a tropical island where you and your elite squad are tasked with rescuing a scientist or a researcher person from Koreans. Things take a turn almost instantly in the opening scenes where you discover that there's like alien forces lurking in the island underneath somewhere as they periodically show up throughout the story until about the halfway mark. The game's main selling point though is the nano suit. It's a high-tech piece of gear that lets you enhance your human abilities. So you can boost your speed, your strength, your armor, or cloak for stealth. So honestly, think of this like a mini Iron Man suit. On paper, this opens up a world of tactical possibilities, but in practice, not so much. Cloaking is the star of the show to the point where it it feels like it's the only viable option, especially on the higher difficulties. Meanwhile, armor mode, which should make you feel like a tank, barely protects you at all. Enemy bullets just shred through in seconds, leaving you scrambling for cover. The result? You play the game like a stealth simulator, creeping around and picking off enemies with silenced weapons. I don't have a problem with that. I quite enjoy playing stealth, and it's effective, but it's completely at odds with the bombastic, chaotic gameplay that the trailers seem to promise back in the day. I was 100% expecting the suit powers to be more substantial than they were. Maybe that's left for Crysis 2 or 3 though, where they're balanced better. The first half of the game gives you a semi-open world jungle that you can explore, and at first, it seems like there's a lot of freedom to this game. You can approach objectives from different angles, use vehicles, you can experiment with your suit powers, your weapons, but this freedom is sadly largely an illusion. Vehicles are noisy and they attract just way too much attention. Strength mode is fun for throwing objects and even animals, but it's unreliable in actual combat, and while the maps are large, there's little reason to actually explore them. There's no collectibles, there's no meaningful side objectives, there's just empty space and enemies. I think this is just an absolute wasted opportunity to not have hidden collectibles such as audio logs to find out that maybe like what's going on the island just while you're running around. One thing I did enjoy was the weapon customization system. Mid-combat, you can actually tweak your guns with silencers, scopes, grenade launchers, and more. It's a neat feature that adds some flexibility, but even this felt underutilized. I found myself sticking to the exact same loadout for the entire game on both playthroughs. Silenced weapons, stealth tactics, and this is because the game never encouraged me to experiment really with anything else. For example, there's no mission that forces you to rely on the tranq darts or go full sniper mode, use different grenades for different enemy types, which there is none in the human enemies. It's a really cool system, but it's just kind of held back by the lack of variety in the mission design. That is one thing I am looking forward to though, going to Crysis 2 and 3 eventually in the future. About halfway through the story, the game takes a dramatic turn. You stop fighting human soldiers and you start facing alien machines. The lush jungles kind of just give way to completely linear set piece driven levels. You never go back. It's a little bit of a bold shift, but it comes with its own set of issues. Now, the alien enemies, they're fast, they're unpredictable, they hit hard. The zero gravity section where you first encounter them, it's ambitious, but it's a little clunky. Controlling your character in a full 3D space while managing limited arrow was definitely more frustrating than it was fun. The final mission was kind of a highlight though. Set on a submarine, you end with a massive showdown against like a big alien boss thing. It's tough, especially on Delta difficulty. It's a pain in the ass, but by that point I had a solid grasp of the game's mechanics, and it was actually easier on Delta the second time playing through than it was on my first normal playthrough. For trophy hunters, if you're aiming for the platinum, prepare for either a really easy list or middling frustration. The trophy list itself is rated at a 3 out of 10 in difficulty, but I'd say it's closer to like a 4 or 5. The main challenge comes from completing the game on Delta difficulty. Quick deaths, tough enemies, and poor checkpoint placement can make progress quite slow sometimes. That being said though, most trophies really straightforward. They're just kill counts, ability usage. There's a few mission specific challenges. If you're experienced with FPS games, it's really quite manageable and it's not that bad, but if you're not, you're in for a much rougher time. So, is Crysis Remastered worth playing in 2024? For first timers like me, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Like, it's interesting to see as a piece of gaming history. There is moments of brilliance that hint at why it was so revolutionary in 2007, but it hasn't aged that gracefully. So the clunky mechanics, the uneven difficulty, the unbalanced suit powers, and just the lack of true promised freedom make it kind of hard to recommend to modern gamers, and I was definitely more annoyed playing the game than positive by the end. If you're curious, I do suggest playing it on easy just for a quick stress-free one, especially while it's still on PS Plus, or if you're an OG Crysis fan from back in the day, maybe it actually ran on your PC. Maybe this will be a nostalgic playthrough, but coming from a first-timer's perspective, again, in the modern age, it's a little rough. I struggled a bit, clunky, but yeah. Overall, as always, I'm happy to try something, give it a fair shot, and it's a nice shiny platinum achieve, so no regrets now, days later after I've slept on it, but it's just not something I'd play again personally. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Remember, if you like what I do here, just giving my very average opinion in some very casual content, leave a like on the video so YouTube knows it doesn't totally suck. Subscribe if you're new. I upload every sometimes, maybe. Follow me on my socials, linked down below the like button, and yeah, hope you guys having a fan-freaking-tastic rest of the day, and as always, my name is Zeno, and you guys take care now.